Self-improvement almost always starts with the body because it's the one place where progress is impossible to fake. When you lift, you can see it. You can feel it. You can get a pump, and for a moment, you catch a glimpse of who you're going to be in 6 months or a year if you stay consistent. That feedback is physical and immediate. It's not abstract. It's not philosophical. It's not trust the process. It's right there in your body. It's also the easiest thing to control. You don't need to solve your childhood. You don't need to understand the meaning or purpose. You just have to show up and do the thing. And that's why it works. That's why working out is the gateway to all self-improvement. When I started working out, I finally understood what Seneca meant when he said to treat the body rigorously so that it does not disobey the mind. Training your body teaches you delayed gratification. It teaches you how to accept discomfort. It teaches you how to suffer without panicking. Because when you first start working out, it fucking sucks. Let's be honest. It fucking sucks starting out from zero. You hate it. Everything feels like an ordeal. You don't know what you're doing. You don't know even if it's going to work out. There's no guarantee you'll lose weight. There never is. There's no guarantee you'll look different. You just keep showing up anyway. You learn calories. You learn how to read labels. You learn how to cook. You make time even when you feel like you don't have time. And slowly, very slowly, it starts to feel less unnatural. That's why the body is the gateway. Not because it's shallow, but because it forces faith without uncertainty. You do the work before you believe. And then, here's the thing about self-improvement. You start working out, and you start noticing how you get more attention from people. And you start learning about status. Because once you start working out, you get lean, you get more muscle, you start to see your status go up suddenly. People start talking to you more often, or they get more attention than you did before you were just fat and played games. So status becomes more obvious once you start improving. But here's the thing. Status feels uncomfortable to talk about because no one wants to believe there's someone above them. Nobody wants to admit there's a hierarchy. But once you start improving yourself, it becomes impossible to ignore. I noticed it early, even in high school, which is probably where all of us notice it. You could feel it. You see the jocks, you see the pretty girls, you see the way people talk to them versus how they talk to everyone else. I know there was a difference long before I had words for it. I personally knew because I used to weigh 380 pounds. And when you're that big, people don't treat you neutrally. They treat you kind of like an inconvenience. You feel it in their tone, in their eye contact, in the way they rush past you. But when I lost the weight, people became friendlier. They became more open, they became more attentive, and honestly, that part was uncomfortable. I still felt fat, even when I wasn't. Someone once told me that I had a fat brain, and I knew exactly what they meant. My identity hadn't caught up to my body yet. That's when you realize status isn't moral or immoral. It's subconscious. People respond to signals whether they want to or not. Ignoring that doesn't make you enlightened. It just makes you naive. And so it's very interesting. Once you start self-improving yourself, you start the body. And it's just interesting how monks, samurai, and gym bros all share the same visual language. When you see them on your Instagram feed, you start liking self-improvement, you start following gym bros, gym rats, you start getting Buddhism pop into it. Here's the same imagery they have. Here's what they show. Restraint, posture, calm, authority. That isn't an accident. Discipline is the ultimate skill they all have in common. It's the clearest, marker of adulthood. And honestly, a masculinity. What isn't masculinity is it's not aggression, it's not dominance, it's discipline. Your non response is your power. The moment you explode in anger, you've handed control to someone else. Calm isn't passivity, it's command. Learning what you can control and what you can't is the whole game of life and what it means to be a man. Your mind is basically an elephant. Your logic is just the rider. You don't overpower emotion, you direct it. And that's what restraint really is. Energy that's been trained instead of wasted. So, once you start improving yourself, your body, the next step is your emotions, which is probably the hardest one to take responsibility for. It feels harder than physical discipline. Emotional work feels harder because you can't see it, you can't measure it, and there's no guaranteed result. If I bench 135 pounds consistently for 6 months, something will happen. I might not turn into a Greek statue, but I'll improve. There's a direct line between effort and outcome. Emotional work, however, doesn't give you that. You can track macros, you can track your weight, but how do you track honesty? How do you measure whether we're real in a conversation today? That's a lot harder. That's why I used to think emotional and social work was bullshit. If I can't quantify it, how is it even a skill? How do I know it's working? But that's also why it's harder. Because life isn't a spreadsheet. Conversations reset every day. You can't get a PR for vulnerability. That's just the truth. Okay? And once you keep improving yourself, you start realizing that self-improvement can turn into over-optimization. Because early on, once you start improving yourself, every new idea, every new lesson, it seems and feels shiny. Every habit might be the secret. Every routine feels necessary. You don't know what actually works yet. So you try to do everything. You think it needs to be perfect. You don't trust your progress because it still feels fragile. Like maybe you just got lucky the first time. That's how I felt when I lost the weight. I thought I got lucky and I had to do something else to be more productive. There's also a deeper panic underneath it all. Feeling behind. Feeling like time already passed you by. Feeling like other people were blessed with advantages you didn't have. So you overcorrect. You optimize. You stack habits. You try to ensure success because losing again feels unbearable. Only later do you learn addition by subtraction. Another thing about the self-improvement space is Buddhism. I never understood what Buddhism had to do with all of it all. And I think once you start working on yourself, it kind of makes sense. Because meditation and Buddhism usually makes sense only after you try to control everything, because that's when you finally see the pattern. All suffering comes from trying to control outcomes you don't actually control. Overachievers hate this idea, like myself. People who like winning hate this idea too, like myself. The law of reverse effort is infuriating when your entire identity is built on effort. But eventually you hit the wall. You realize the control was always an illusion. And surrender doesn't make life worse, it makes it workable. Spirituality isn't anti-discipline. It's what keeps discipline from becoming madness. I think the shift happens for everyone at a different point. When I realized to let go and to be the only thing you have is presence. For me, that shift happened after I lost weight. I hit 190 and realized, oh, I'm here. I was healthier than I'd ever been. I was grateful I had made it. But still, I noticed flaws. I still notice them. I have loose skin. I have a stomach that I didn't look like how I imagined. The finish line just kept moving. And that's when it hits you. The goal was never the goal. The process was. There is no destination. There's just a way of being. And that's the scary part of self-improvement. Nobody actually talks about. You think there's an endpoint. You think you'll arrive and stop. But working out taught me that's not how it works. You don't finish, you live it. Self improvement eventually stops being about becoming something and turns into learning how to be something. And once you see that, the whole pipeline from working on your body to seeing the status games we all play subconsciously to how the strongest form of control is letting go or realizing you have no control, it all makes sense.